And joining us right now, the Rothman Orthopedics guest line from Inquirer.com. She covers the Phillies. She does an amazing job. Make sure you guys are reading all things Alex Coffey on Inquirer.com and following on social media as well. Alex Coffey, finally joining the program. Great to have you, Alex. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I am doing fantastic. My listeners, my viewers know I'm a huge fan of yours. You've done a fantastic job since taking over the beat with the Phils 2 years ago. Social media posts, the stuff from spring training was fantastic. And you come from a writing background. You come from a family of writers, do you not?
I do. My dad wrote for the New York Daily News for about 35 years, somewhere in that range. So.
Okay. And author in his own right. You guys can look up his books. He's an incredible writer. Wayne Coffey is his name. But what's funny is, like, I don't have any family in the radio, the print, or the TV business. So everyone, whenever, like, I had free reign, I could do whenever I wanted. But people I have talked to always say they don't want their kids to follow in their footsteps in this type of business. You being a writer, did your father encourage, discourage at first? How did that kind of play out in the family dynamic?
Well, he always brought me to events. So I think in that way he was encouraging me. But then when I would bring up the possibility of like going into writing, he would be like, do not do that. That's yeah. So I was kind of getting mixed messages. And initially I went into PR and communications out of college, mostly because I was like, this is probably not a stable business. It's a bad idea. But I started writing a little bit, and I kind of caught the bug, and then I just told him that I was going to do it, and that it wasn't. I remember saying that it wasn't like I wasn't asking for his permission. I was just telling him.
You reported the news. That's all you did. Like, Dad, this is happening. Breaking. I'm going to become a writer. That's interesting. Do you have anything I'm just curious if anything sticks out to you from your childhood, like an event or anything like that that you attended with your father?
I think he brought me to the best stuff when I was so young that I couldn't remember. Like, he brought me to Wimbledon when I was 1. He brought me to the Olympics when I was 1. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. Like, I have pictures of myself as a baby, but I don't have vivid memories from being at Wimbledon.
Right.
Apparently he would like bring me into the press box and stuff and like pass me around, which is, questionable parenting, but it's okay.
Daycare in those days. That's all you're doing. Jason Stark's going to watch it for an hour. No, all right. No, Alex, but seriously, it's so great to talk to you and talk to you about this Phillies team and this Phillies season, because it is just absolutely insane. Like, the first real question about the Phillies I have to ask you is how did we get here? How did we get to watching this team be 5 games under 500 in the midst of being swept by the New York Mets in Flushing, and then all of a sudden they're the second best team in baseball, only to the Braves since June 1st? How did that turnaround happen, Alex?
I mean, I think it's a bunch of, like, you can point to starting pitching. The bullpen has been really solid for most of the season. Like, they blew a save. They won last night, but they blew a save last night off of Soto allowing those runs. And it was the first save that they had blown in over a month. And I feel like, as you know, I haven't been covering this team for very long, but anyone that's been watching this team for a long time knows that is, not the norm historically for them to have a run like that. So I think a lot of credit goes to the bullpen. A lot of credit goes to the emergence of their starting pitching over the past month and a half. That kind of like steadied things out, I think, for them, because when you have starters that aren't able to go deep into games, and you're like leaning on the bullpen more, and then the bullpen gets fatigued, and there's like a real domino effect to that. So I think pitching was honestly really what carried them. So, but it's funny because it's like a team that's packed with stars, and I really don't think it's been, it's not like the stars that have been stepping, like, occasionally they do, but I don't think that that's like the main reason why they're where they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call Ranger Suarez a star, and he had a dominant month of June. I mean, Taijuan Walker has been pretty darn good for him as well. He's not a star. He was a nice acquisition to make in the offseason, obviously. But yeah, a guy like Trea Turner, for instance, you feel like he starts to hit a little bit of a stride, and then it starts to turn into a little bit more of a slump. June was a good month for him as far as getting on base, 350 on base percentage, which was a sight for very sore eyes for Phillies fans, and then kind of teetering up and down again. Do you think it is anything? I don't know. You're around him. Is he a guy that looks like he's uncomfortable, or is he a guy that is around familiar faces in this clubhouse and in this ballpark?
It's hard to say because I don't think that he's ever had a stretch like this in his career. Like a lot of this is new for him. I don't think we've asked him if the contract is weighing on him, playing in a new city is weighing on him, and he says that it's not. But the fact of the matter is, like, whether it's affecting him or not, it is new. Like, he has never signed a deal that's this long before. This is a different market from what he's played in, even when he was like out in LA and stuff. Like, LA is a big market, but the media, like, it's like a different media market here.
Yeah. And fan base.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people have been, making these comparisons to Castellanos, and again, like, Turner hasn't said that he is in the same boat or is feeling the same things, but it wouldn't shock me if there's just something about, like, being here that first year and adjusting, and, like, maybe it being a difficult transition. And I think that that's something that we'd have to, like, ask him about, like, in spring training next year. But that's just my take. It just seems like a difficult transition. And we've seen snippets of the type of player that he can be. Like, he made an incredible catch yesterday that saved the go-ahead run from scoring in extra innings. And it was honestly like a pretty good weekend for him. Like, from, he had like some clutch hits, like RBIs and stuff like that, but has just struggled to consistently deliver, and he's known for being consistent. I mean, this is a guy who's like a career 300 hitter. So when you're setting that bar for yourself for your career, people expect consistency. So, so yeah, that isn't really what we've seen from him so far, but it's kind of hard at this point to nail down exactly why that is,
To talk about the team as far as making people feel comfortable, to distill it even further, a guy like Bryce Harper, I was going to ask you about just overall team chemistry and, what you make of that. If that's too much, for that's too much for the movies, or if that's actual tangible, real thing. And I'm writing things down, and they all go back to Bryce Harper, whether that's Bryce Harper, calling the bullpen after he breaks his drought, whether that's Bryce Harper laughing it up with Trea Turner on the base paths yesterday after his double, and he was surprised Trea Turner didn't score, or it was the story that you wrote about in Inquirer, talking about how he went out there and he talked to Jeff Hoffman to congratulate him on his 2 innings scoreless, helping the Phillies win that ball game. It all seems to stem from Bryce Harper, and I'm sure Kyle Schwarber is another team leader, is another guy that really helps lead that charge. But really, it seems that it really comes from Bryce Harper a lot of these instances.
Yeah, I think so. I think Schwarber is more of like a vocal leader, whereas like Harper leads more by example. But like for example, Schwarber is the guy that will like do toast after wins and like toast like specific guys, and it's not always like the big name guys. Like sometimes it's like a reliever who just got called up, like a younger, you know what I mean? Like, it's not always like the big name people. So yeah, I think it's like a combination of both of those guys, but they lead in different ways. But I will say, like, I do think that Harper's energy has like a noticeable impact on the rest of the team. Even talking to Hoffman last night, I mean, he part of the reason he is up here is because when Bryce was trying to get at bats, like making his way back to being DH, they called up Hoffman, and called up meaning like they just had him come up to the ballpark to face him and throw him live BP. And Harper told him after the fact that he looked like a totally different pitcher. Like, he had faced him in 2016, and he was like, I think your stuff is so much better. You're commanding it well. And like, he didn't have to do that, like he might have never like crossed paths with this guy again, like for all we know. But it like gave Hoffman a lot of confidence, and it made him think like, this guy obviously knows what he's talking about. Like, maybe things are different for me. Like, it's like the impact of like moments like that. There's small moments, and we probably like, we haven't heard about all of them, but they have a big impact for sure. So I think he leads in like kind of a more like under the radar way, if that makes sense.
To go back to the starting pitching, inconsistency is another word you could talk. We talked about it a little bit there with Trea Turner. You talk about a guy like Aaron Nola. You're talking about a guy like Zach Wheeler. It was good to see him break the 6th inning, get to the 7th inning threshold he did the other day in that final game against the Padres. So when it comes to Nola and Wheeler, what's being said? What do you hear around the clubhouse, if anything, about these guys trying to settle in and really find a groove to at least finish out the second half of the season?
I don't know as much about what's being said. It's just hard to get a sense of like what is going on with them. Wheeler hasn't really looked like himself. I feel like most nights he has like one bad inning where things implode, and then the other, like he kind of almost like picks up steam from then on. Like he pitched into the 7th last night, and his fastball had a lot of life to it, and the pitches that he gave up for home runs weren't necessarily bad pitches. So, yeah, I mean, but he hasn't exactly looked like the version of him that we saw last year, and obviously Nola hasn't either. You know, he'll have some great, brilliant outings, and then it'll be followed by like a rough outing, and it's just not. He's said himself that it's just not consistent, and I think that it's probably the combination of a lot of things. You know, this probably won't be the most popular reason, but I don't think that like the defense helps them. I think that should be taken into consideration. With Nola specifically, like his numbers pitching with runners on versus runners off are like dramatically different. So him pitching out of the stretch versus out of the windup is something that, you know, for whatever reason, maybe it's the pitch clock, maybe it's that they're like limited pickoff attempts in 2023 with the rule changes. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason in 2023, he's struggling with it more than he ever has in his career. So I think just like a combination of things, but you know, obviously those guys are their aces, so they needed to figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah. And I have to ask about this too, because the trade deadline is just around the corner now. You know, we got a couple of weeks away from the MLB trade deadline. What do you think are realistic expectations Phillies fans can have as that trade deadline gets closer and closer? What's realistic? Are we talking Alex Coffey? Are we talking Shohei Ohtani? Are we talking about Juan Soto just making his trip over here back to the East Coast? What are we talking about here as far as a potential deadline deal with the Phillies?
I think so much of it hinges on whether or not Bryce Harper is going to play first base, you know, and they have said that he's going to play in the Brewers series, which starts on Tuesday, tomorrow. So that gives them like a week and a half to see if he can actually do it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that timing is, they're not rushing him, but I think that timing is like strategic. Like it gives them, the front office, like a couple of like a sizable amount of games where they can see like, is this feasible? Is this not feasible? Like, how does his arm look? Things like that, you know, and if he can stick there, then I think that opens things up, you know, opens things up on the roster. Like it opens that DH spot for Schwarber, gets him out of left field. And then you can add, you know, an outfielder, maybe like a Bellinger or someone like that. And Bellinger also can play first base. So that if they did that, then that might like allow Harper some time to like, you know, maybe play a game at first, then play, you know, like switch on and off rather than like have him be their permanent first baseman. But again, like a lot of it just hinges on whether or not he can stick there.
He's got a week and a half audition just to be like, he can totally do this. He can't do this. Make a trade as soon as possible.
Well, I mean, he's defied expectations. Like he's beaten these timelines before. Like if you recall, the initial timeline that they gave us for him returning, period, was around this time. Mm-hmm. So not only is he back, like beat it by months and months, but he's like theoretically going to be playing in the field by the time that they said he was supposed to be like just DHing like back. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you would say around the Bellinger type of level would be something that would be a fair expectation potentially for Phillies fans.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, with the way that they're playing, they're 9 games above 500. I mean, it's clear that they're contenders. I think that would make sense. And, you know, anyone that like, it's ironic. This team was built to slug, but that's just something that they haven't really been able to do. So I think that those are the biggest needs is like outfield, you know, finding an outfielder who can give them some pop.
Understood. Alex, you're a first-time guest here on the Farzy show. So, hold on. I just got to ask you this one question. Mm-hmm. After this series in particular, in or out on robo-umps? In or out on robo-umpires?
In. Definitely in.
Look at us. Look, I consider myself a non-practicing baseball traditionalist. That's the way I like to term it nowadays.
If you care about pace of play, like imagine how much time you're saving by like the manager not coming out and complaining. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a way to speed up the game itself.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Would you be so kind as a first-time guest of the Farzy show to play a little Farzy 5 with us? 5 fast questions here.
Yeah.
All right, let me just cue up the band because the band they've had off for a while. It's been a while since we had a first-time guest. Guys, you ready? Not terrible. All right. Out of practice, but good. All right, here we go. First question. Best job before this job? Best job before you were in the media?
Well, I guess like Hall of Fame job, like working at the Hall of Fame, first job out of college. Wasn't in the media technically, so I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Go-to fast food place.
Cookout.
Cookout?
It's in the South. Yeah. I went to college in Virginia. It's like in Virginia, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be in Virginia in about a month. I will check that out. Fantastic. First, what do I order at Cookout? What's good at Cookout?
They have really good milkshakes. They have like hush puppies, like things like that. Like a lot of it like fried. Yeah.
Fried. Oh, in the South? No way. All right. First date deal breaker. It's a first date deal breaker. Rude to the wait staff. Bad grammar in a text message. I imagine a writer wouldn't like that. I don't know. What's a first date deal breaker?
I would say, I think rude to the wait staff. It's just like unnecessary.
Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. It's one of my favorite ones that people say that. And if you take someone out and they don't reach to share the bill, or at least try to pay the bill. That's if you ever seen the movie Bronx Tale, the door test. Mm-hmm. That's like the modern day door test. If they don't reach, then you're like, you fail. Okay. Anyway, favorite city to travel to, other than like England for Wimbledon and all that stuff.
Yeah. I love San Diego. I really, really like San Diego. So I'll go with that.
I'm all about San Diego. Love San Diego. And then finally, Alex, you and I have a mutual friend named Devin Caney. I mentioned her name earlier in the show. She's awesome, and you are awesome. But what makes you beep your horn in traffic? What forces you and moves you to beep your horn in traffic?
Bicyclists, like bike riders, annoy me. Yeah.
You're first. You're first to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just like ignore the rules of they live by their own rules. So bike riders. Yeah.
Fair enough. Alex Coffey, tremendous talking to you. Hey guys. All right, good job. Thank you. They shut it up really, really quick there. Make sure you guys are following Alex on Twitter, of course, all social media. Make sure you're reading all her stuff and her latest stuff on Inquirer.com as well. Alex, an absolute joy. Hopefully we can have you on again down the line, maybe a playoff pusher. The Phillies will give us that opportunity, but absolute pleasure talking to you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Absolutely. Alex Coffey joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line.